Good day, ma'am. I'm Gerald Curib, the final reporter, Group 4, and this is my topic. Evolution of Philippine Constitution. The Constitution is defined as a set of fundamental principles or establishment precedents according to which a state or organization is governed. Thus, the word itself means to be part of a whole, the coming together of distinct entities into one group with the same principles and ideals. So these principles define the nature and extent of government. The Constitution of the Philippines, the supreme law, Republic of the Philippines, has been effected since 1987. There were only three or other constitutions that have effectively governed the government: 1935 Commonwealth Constitution, the 1973 Constitution, and the 1986 Freedom Constitution. The Constitution of Piak na Bato was the first revolutionary constitution of the Philippines Republic during the Philippine Revolution and was promulgated by Philippine Revolutionary Government on November 1, 1897. Malolos Constitution. After the signing of truce, the Filipino revolutionary leaders accepted a payment from Spain and went to exile in Hong Kong. Upon the defeat of the Spanish to the Americans in the Battle of Manila Bay on May 1, 1898, the United States Navy transported Aguinaldo back to the Philippines. The Commonwealth, 1935, the Commonwealth Constitution. It is worth mentioning that after the Treaty of Paris, the Philippines was subjected to the power of United States of America. Effectively, the new colonizer of the Philippines from 1898 to 1901, the Philippines would be placed under a military government until a civil government would be put into place. That's the Commonwealth Constitution. 1973 Constitutional Authoritarianism. In 1965, Ferdinand E. Marcos was elected president, and in 1967, Philippine Congress passed a resolution calling for a constitutional convention to change the 1935 Constitution. Marcos won the re-election in 1969 in a bid boosted by campaign over spending and use of government funds. Elections of delegates to the Constitutional Convention were held on November 1970, and convention began formally on June 1, 1971, with former President Carlos P. Garcia being elected as conventional president. Unfortunately, he died and was succeeded by another former President, Diosdado Macapagal. Before the convention finished its work, martial law was declared. And that's the last topic, ma'am. Thank you. And God bless.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Noveron, and my topic is all about changing the Constitution. Changing the Constitution is a perennial issue that crops up, and terms such as cha-cha, con-as, and con-con are regularly thrown around. Article 17 of the 1987 Constitution provides for three ways by which the Constitution can be changed. Congress, House of Representatives, and the Senate may convene as a constituent assembly, or CONAS, to propose amendments to the Constitution. It is not clear, however, if Congress is to vote as a single body or separately. Another method is through the Constitutional Convention, or CONCON, where Congress, upon a vote of 2/3 of all its members, calls for a Constitutional Convention. They also submit to the electorate the question of calling a convention through a majority vote of all its members. And the third method is called the People's Initiative, or PI. In this method, amendments to the Constitution may be proposed by the people upon a petition of at least 12% of the total number of registered voters. Then the second topic is all about attempts to amend or change the 1987 Constitution. The 1987 Constitution provided for three methods by which the Constitution can be amended, all requiring ratification by a majority vote in a national referendum. These methods were Constituent Assembly, Constitutional Convention, and People's Initiative.
Go.
Using these modes, there were efforts to amend or change the 1987 Constitution, starting with the presidency of Fidel V. Ramos, who succeeded Corazon Aquino. The first attempt was in 1995, when the Secretary of National Security Council, Jose Almonte, drafted a constitution, but it was exposed to the media and it never prospered. The second efforts happened in 1997, when a group called FIRMA hoped to gather signatures from voters to change the Constitution through a people's initiative. Many were against this, including then Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago, who brought the issue to court and won with the Supreme Court, judging that a people's initiative cannot push through without an enabling law. The third topic is federalism. Federalism in the Philippines was supported by President Duterte in 2016 presidential elections, saying that it will evenly distribute wealth in the Philippines instead of concentrating it in Manila, the capital of the country. As a form of government, a central governing authority and constituent political units, constitutionally shared sovereignty applied to the Philippines. The country will be broken into autonomous regions. Each region will be further divided into local government units. The region will have the primary responsibility of industry, development, public safety and instruction, education, healthcare, transportation, and many more. The national government, on the other hand, will only handle matters of the national interest, such as foreign policy and defense, among others. That's all. Thank you.
So, a pleasant morning to each and everyone. So, my name is Lavelle and this is my respective report, which is policies on agrarian reform. So, agrarian reform is essentially the rectification of the whole system of agriculture, an important aspect of the Philippine economy because nearly half of the population is employed in agricultural sector and most citizens live in rural areas. Agrarian reform is centered on a relationship between production and the distribution of the land among farmers. The agrarian program is founded in the right of farmers and regular farm workers who are landless to own directly or collectively the lands they till. Agrarian reforms also means the distribution of lands, regardless of crop or fruit produce, to farmers and regular farm workers who are landless, irrespective of tenurial agreement, to include the totality of factors and support services designed to lift the economic status of the beneficiary. So, agrarian reforms kay mono siya ang agrarian is kanang mono siya ang maghatag og katungod sa mga landless nga farm workers, which is mga saop nya. Ang kanisang agrarian program kay mosad ni ang maghatag og kanang nay, for instances kanang ilang gisaop tagaan sila na sila 10% nga yuta na ang katukuran sa ilang balay nga na. And ang agrarian sad mosad ni ang maghatag og agreement sa landowners o farm workers nga posible nga share sa landowners or makuha sa landowners, which is for instances kanang nasa sila 1 hectare nga giuma or gisaop, so mo na ang agrarian nga na 20% nga share og or tributes ang landowners, which is if agree ang both company, so muna sila nga na-share ang landowners nga 20%, which is kanang crops or fruits nga na-produce sa katong na farm workers. Next is land ownership of the Philippines under Spain. So, when the Spaniards colonized the country, they brought with them a system of pueblo agriculture, where rural communities often dispersed and scattered in nature were organized into pueblo and given the land to cultivate. So, pueblo agriculture is a system where native rural communities were organized into pueblo and each Christianized native families is given 4 to 5 hectares to cultivate. So, ang pueblo agricultures nga gidala sa Spaniards kay which is ang prioritize nga tagaanan ni kay kanang religious man siguro. So, next is in the land ownership under Spaniards, family were not allowed to own their land home. The King of Spain owned the land and Filipinos were assigned to the land to cultivate. Through the law of Andes, the Spanish crown award tracts of the following. So, first is religious orders. Second is repartamentos for Spanish military as a reward for their service. Lastly is Spanish encomenderos to those mandated to manage the given land. So, religious orders which is kaning muna siya ang mga related religious which is mga pare, mga ingana. Second is repartamentos for Spanish military. So, muna siya ang mga katanay related sa military nga nag-serve sila sa community or society. So, lastly is Spanish encomenderos. So, those mandate to manage the land. So, encomenderos, so muna siya ang mumandar or mumandar sa mga farm workers nga inganion siya pag-manage. And then, Filipinos work and pay their tribute. So, encomendero, Filipinos were not the right to own land and only work in them so that they might have some shares of the crops and pay tribute. So, ang Pilipino kay wala sila katungod nga ma-own og yuta. So, ang ila lang kay magkanang sila kanang mananom sila niya. Na lang sila i-tribute or sweldo or kanang gamay nga share sa kanang crop. So, that's all. Thank you.
Good day everyone. My name is Tisel Ikiliopas. My topic is all about land ownership in the Philippines under the Americans. The Americans were aware that the main cause of social unrest in the Philippines was landlessness, and they attempted to put an end to the deplorable conditions of the tenant farmers by passing several land policies to increase the small landholders and distribute ownership to a bigger number of Filipino tenants and farmers. In the United States, land ownership is based on the principle of private property rights, where individuals or entities have the legal rights to buy, sell, use, and transfer land as they see fit. This system is rooted in the idea of individual liberty and economic freedom. Under American law, land ownership is typically evidenced by a deed, which is a legal document that identifies the owner of the property. The owner of the land has the right to use the land for various purposes, such as residential, commercial, or agricultural use. Additionally, the government plays a role in land ownership through zoning laws, property taxes, and eminent domain, which allows the government to take private property for public use with compensation. Next, the sakdal or sakdalista. The sakdal refers to the sakdalista movement that emerged in the Philippines during the 1930s. The sakdalistas were a radical political group that sought social and economic reforms, as well as independence from American colonial rule. The Filipino word sakdal means to accuse, which is the title of newspaper helmed by Benigno Ramos. They demanded the reforms from the government, such as the abolition of taxes and equal or common ownership of land, among others. The sakdalistas advocate for land reform, workers' rights, and the end of foreign domination in the Philippines. They organize protests, strikes, and demonstrations to demand political change and social justice. One of the key events associated with the Sakdal movement is the Sakdal Uprising of 1935, where Sakdalistas staged a rebellion against the government. The uprising was met with a violent crackdown by authorities, leading to the arrest and imprisonment of many Sakdalista leaders. The Sakdal movement was a significant chapter in Philippine history, highlighting the struggle for independence, social justice, and political reform during the colonial period.
My name is Steven Roosevelt Capina, and my report is about post-harvest intervention toward the agrarian reform, rehabilitation, and rebuilding after the war. We are focused on providing a solution to a problem to the past. President Ruas passed the Republic Act No. 34 to establish a 30-60 sharing arrangement between tenant and landlord. The government also attempted to redistribution Hacienda land, falling prey to the woes of similar attempt since the support was given to the two small farmers who are given land. Term of President Elpidio Quirino, the Land Settlement Development Corporation or LASEDECA was established to accelerate and expand the resettlement program for present. This agency later on to become the National Resettlement and Rehabilitation Administration or NARA under the administration of President Ramon Magsaysay. President Ramon Magsaysay saw the importance of pursuing genuine land reform program and convinced the Congress majority which our land elite to pass legislation improve and land reform situation. Republic Act No. 119 or the Agricultural Tenants and Act was passed to government relationship between landholders and tenants practice. Through this law, the Court of Agricultural Relationship was created in 1955 to improve the tenants' security and the agricultural credit and Cooperative Finance Administration or ECCFE was also created mainly to provide warehouse facility and assist the farmer in marketing their products. The administration spearheaded the establishment to the Agricultural and Industrial Bank to provide the easier term of applying for homestead and other farmland. NARA or accelerated the government resettlement program and distribution to agricultural land to landless tenants and farmers. It also aimed to convince the members of the Hawk movement rebels in the Central Luzon to resettle the area where they are restart their lives as peaceful citizens. Despite a more vigorous effort toward the agrarian reform, the situation of the farmer remained there since the government lacked of funds and provide adequate support service for the program, and the land elite did not fully support and they criticized the program. A major threat in the land reform arrived during the term of President BSA-2 Macapagal through the Agrarian Land Reform Code, Republic Act No. 38449. Primary Source Declaration of Policy under RE No. 3844 or Agricultural Land Reform Code. Source Section 2 Declaration Policy. It has policy of state. Source Section 2 Declaration of Policy. It is a policy of state. 1. The established owner cultivatorship and the economics family size formed of the base Philippine agricultural and as a consequence diverted landlord capital and agriculture to industrial development. 2. To achieve the magnificent existence of the small farmer free from pretentious institutional restraint and practice. 3. To create the fairly purely available successful in economic structure in agricultural contrary to greater productivity and higher farm income. 4. To apply all labor's law equally and without discrimination to both industry and agricultural exchange on owners. 5. To provide a more rigorous systematic and land settlement program and public land distribution. 6. To make a small farmers more dependent, self-reliant, and responsible citizens and source of genuine strength our democratic this could publish share the learning in the Philippines and prescribed a program to convert tenant farmer to lease and later the owner. Cultivators are also aimed to free tenant for tenancy and emphasize the owner cultureship and farmer independent equality, productivity, improvement, and public land distribution, despite being one of the most comprehensive piece and of land reform. Registration ever passed to the Philippine Congress did not make an effort of come up with a separate bill of fund. It is implemented despite the fact that it provide beneficial in province where it was polite and tested.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Rhea Mundok, and my topic for today is all about Primary Source Presidential Decree number 27, October 21, 1972. This shall apply to tenant farmers of private agricultural lands primarily devoted to rice and corn under a system of share crop or less than tenancy, whether classified and landed estate or not. So, kini siya is pwede ni siya magamit sa mga nag-abang mag-uuma or magsasaka sa mga pribadong yuta sa agriculture or agricultural. The tenant farmer, whether in land classified as landed estate or not, shall be deemed owner of the portions constituting a family-sized farm of 5 hectare if not irrigated. So, ang family-sized farm of 5 hectares kay dili ni siya irrigated and the 3 hectare if irrigated. In all cases, the landowner may retain an area of note for more than 7 hectares of such landowner and cultivating such as area or will now cultivate it. For the purpose of determining the cost of the land to be transferred to the tenant farmer for shown to this degree, the value of the land shall be equivalent to 2 1/2, 21 and 2 times average harvest of 3 normal crop years immediately preceding the promulgation of this decree. The total cost of the land, including interest and the rate of 6% per annum, shall be paid by the tenant in 15 years of 15 equal annual amortization. Titled to the land acquired for shown to this degree of the land reform program of the government shall not be transferable except by hereditary succession or to the government in accordance with the provision of this degree to Code Agrarian Reforms and other existing law and regulation. So, na operation land transfer. So, on lands occupied by tenants or more than 7 hectares on rice and corn lands commenced and through legal compulsion and improved delivery of support service to small farmers, agrarian reform seems to be finally achievable. So, Masagana 99. Farmers were able to borrow from banks and purchase 3 hectares plot of land agricultural and bots. So, ang mga farmers is pwede ra sila manghuam o mga kanangkuan adto sa bangko, kwarta ba or kanang bisan unsa. Pwede ra sila manghuam dadto para makuan ilaha mapangataan og pagi ang ilahang panginabuhi sa ilahang farm. So, post 1986 agrarian reform. The overthrow of Marcos and Constitution resulted in renewed interest and attention the agrarian reform as President Corazon Aquino envisioned agrarian reform to be the centerpiece of administration social legislation. On 22 July 1987, Aquino issued Presidential Proclamation 131 and Executive Order 229 which outlined her land reform program. In 1988, the Congress passed A number 6657 or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law CERL, which is introduced the program with same name Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program or ARP. The CARP was limited because it is accomplished very little during administration of Aquino. It only accomplished 22.5% of land distribution in 6 years, owing to the fact that Congress, dominated by the land elite, was unwilling to fund the high compensation cost of the program. Under the term of President Ramos, CARP implementation was speeded in order to meet the 10-year time frame despite limitation and constraint in funding, logistics, and participation of involved sectors. By 1996, the Department of Agrarian Reform or DER distributed only 58.25% of the total area target to be covered by the program to address the lacking funding and the dwindling time for the implementation of CARP. Ramos signed RA number 8532 in 1998 to amend CARP and extend the program to another 10 years. So, mao ni nag-sign si kanaang Ramos pagka 1998 nga ma-extend ang program for the 10 years. Carper, the future agrarian reform in the Philippines, the new deadline of CARP expired in 2008, leaving in 1.2 million farmers, beneficiaries, and 1.6 million hectares of agricultural land to be distributed to farmers. In 2009, President Arroyo signed RA number 9700 or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program Extension with Reform Carfer, the mandatory law that extended the deadline to 5 more years from 2009 to 2014. Carper has distributed a total of 1 million hectares of land to 900,000 farmer beneficiaries after 27 years of land reform and to Aquino administration. 500,000 hectares of land remain distributed. So mas dako ang na distribute ni President Arroyo kaysa ni President Aquino. The DAR and DENR are the government agencies mandated to fulfill CARP and CARFER, but even the combined effort and resource of the two agencies have proved incapable of fully achieving the goal of agrarian reform in the Philippines. The powerful landed light the ineffectual bureaucracy of the Philippines government. Until these two challenges are surmounted, genuine agrarian reform and the Philippines remain but a dream of Filipino farmers who have been fighting for their right, the landowner, for centuries. That's all. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenzie Marie Arbuda and my topic is all about evolution of Philippine taxation in Spanish Philippines, and primary source Mariano Herbusa writes to Rizal about taxes. So first, we have evolution of Philippine taxation. In today's world, taxation is a reality that all citizens must contend with for the primary reason that governments raise revenue from the people they govern to be able to function fully. In exchange for the taxes that people pay, the government promises to improve the citizens' lives through good governance. Taxation as a government mechanism to raise funds develop and evolve through time. And in the context of the Philippines, we must understand that it came with our colonial experience. And the second is we have taxation in Spanish Philippines. The Philippines may have abundant natural resources even before in a subsistence economy. And while the payment of tributes of taxes, buwis o handog, are the obligation to provide labor services to the datos in some early Filipino communities in the Philippines may resemble taxation. It is essentially different from the contemporary meaning to the concept. Last, we have primary source Mariano Herbosa writes to Rizal about taxes. Source: Mariano Herbosa to Jose Rizal, Calamba, 29 August 1886. Letters between Rizal and family members, Manila. National Heroes Commission, 1964. 239-241. The tax. With regard to your question on this, the answer is very long as it is the cause of prevailing misery here. What I can write you will be only one half of the story, and even Dumas Senior cannot exhaust the subject. Nevertheless, I'll try to write that I can though I may not be able to give a complete story. You may at least know half of it. Here, there are many kinds of taxes. What they call irrigated rice land, even if it has no water, must pay a tax of 50 kavanes of palay and hax rice, and land with 6 kavanes of seed pay 5 pesos in cash. The land they call dry land that is planted to sugarcane, maize, and others pay different rates. Even if the agreed amount is 30 pesos for the land with 6 cavannas of seed, if they see that the harvest is good, they increase the tax, but they don't increase it if the harvest is poor. They don't increase it if the harvest is poor. There is land whose tax is 25 pesos or 20 pesos, according to custom. The most troublesome are the residential lots in the town. There is no fixed rule that if that is followed only their whim. Hence, even if it's only one span in size, if a stone wall is added, 50 pesos must be paid, the lowest being 20 pesos. But a nipa or kugon house pays only 1 peso for an area of 10 fathoms square. Another feature of this system is that on the day you accept the conditions, the contract will be written which cannot be changed for 4 years, but the tax is increased every year. For these reasons, for 2 years now the payment of tax is confused, and little by little the fear of the residents here of the world vacant in being dispelled, which our ancestors had feared so much. The result is bargaining, like they do in buying fish. It is advisable to offer a low figure and payment can be postponed. Unlike before, when people are very much afraid to pay after May. That's all.
Good day everyone, my topic for today is all about the taxation under the Americans. So in 1898 to 1903, the Americans followed Spanish system of taxation. Urbana replaced by tax on real estate became known as the land tax. So pag 1898 to 1903, ang American may nisunod sa Spanish system of taxation. So Internal Revenue Law of 1904, it prescribed 10 major sources of revenue. First is the license taxes on firms dealing with alcoholic beverages and tobacco. Second is the excuse taxes on alcoholic beverages and tobacco products. Katulo is the taxes on banks and bankers. Kaupat is the document stamp taxes. And 5 is the cedula. 6 is the taxes on insurance and insurance companies. 7 is the taxes on the forest product. 8 is mining concession. 9 is taxes on business and manufacturing. 10 is the occupational licenses. So cedula changes and the new law of the rate was fixed per adult male. So industrial tax became highly complex system that assigned certain tax to an industrial or commercial activity according to their profitability. 1913, the Underwood-Steinmann's Tariff Act was passed, resulting in reduction in the revenue of the government as exposed taxes. So Government General Francis Burton Harrison argued that tax received be increased to make up for loss. So in 1914, income tax introduced. 1919, inheritance tax was created. 1932, National Lottery was established to create revenue to government. So in 1936, income tax rate increased. So adding sort tax rate on individual net income in excess on 10,000 pesos. So pag 1936, ang income tax is nidako or nag-add ding the sort tax rate sa tagsa-tagsa nga nag-net income o niabot sa 10,000 pesos. So in 1936, gihapon, cedula tax was abolished. So pag 1936, ang cedula tax is giwagtang. So 1940, residence tax was imposed in every citizen age 18 years old and every corporation. So pag 1940, nagpasaka sila batas which is the residence tax nga gi-impose in every citizens nga nag-edad og 18 years old og ang every corporation. So 1939, Commonwealth government drafted National Interate Revenue Code new tax system. So number 1, the normal tax of 3% and the surtax on income was replaced by a single tax at a progressive rate. Number 2, personal exemption will reduce. 3, corporation income tax was slightly increased by introducing taxes on inherited estates or gift donated in the name of dead persons. 4 is the cumulative sales tax was replaced by a single turnover tax of 10% on luxuries. Taxes on liquor, cigarettes, forestry products, and mining were increased. 6. Dividends were made taxable. So, earlier system introduced by Americans remain inequitable. Lower class felt bulk of burden taxation. The upper class able to maneuver the situation that benefit them more while agricultural sectors still tax law to promote growth but no industrial investment to take root and develop. So that's all. Thank you.
My name is Glenn Bantilan and this is my topic report. Taxation during the Commonwealth period. New measures and legislation were introduced to make the taxation system appear more equitability during the Commonwealth. Income tax rate were increased in 1936, adding a surtax rate on individual net incomes in excess of 10,000 pesos. Income tax rate of corporation were also increased in 1937. The cedula tax was abolished, which appeared to be a progressive more, but in 1940, a residence tax was imposed on every citizen aged 18 years old and on every corporation. In 1954, the Commonwealth government drafted the National Internal Revenue Code, introducing major change in the new tax system as follows. Number 1, the normal tax of 3% and the surtax on income was replaced by a single tax at a progressive rate. Personal exemptions were reduced. 3. Corporation income tax was slightly increased by introducing tax on inherited estates of gift donated in the name of dead person. 4. Cumulative sales that tax was replaced by a single turnover tax of 10% of luxuries. 5. Taxes on liquor, cigarettes, forestry product, and mining were increased. 6. Dividends were made taxable. The introduced tax structure was an improvement of the earlier system introduced by the Americans, but still remain inequitable. The lower class still felt the bulk of the burden of taxation, while the upper class, the landed elite, or the people in political positions were able to maneuver the situation that would benefit them more. The agriculture sector was still tax low, promote growth, but there was no incentive for industrial investment to take root and develop. Finally, a common character of taxation during the Americans' occupation in the Philippines was not as to diversity the economic development, as some sectors still carried the disproportionate share of the tax burden. World War II enriched the Philippines' shores economics. Activity was put the stop on the Philippines both a new set of administrator, the Japanese military administration in the Philippines during World War II immediately continued the system of tax collection introduced during the Commonwealth but exempted the article belonging to the Japanese armed forces foreign train field, and the main sources of taxation came from amusement manufacturers, professions, and business license. As the wage tax collection was a difficult tax and additional insurance of the government were derived the sales of the national sweepstakes and sales of government bonds. The expenditure of the Japanese military government grew greatly, and they issued military notes in order to cover the cost of war. The next is fiscal policy from 1946 to present. The impact of war on the Philippines economy was effectively disparate, as Manila, the capital, reached to the ground, while the rest of the Philippines was relatively untouched, but the highly agriculture-based economy was disrupted. The United States may have declared the Philippines independent, but as the country needed rehabilitation funds from the United States, the dependency of the Philippines to the Americans was one opportunity to be taken advantage of by the former colonial administrator. The economic situation was so problematic that by 1949 there was a severe lack of funds in many aspects of governances, such as the military and the education sectors. The impetus for economic growth came during the time of President Elpidio Quirino through the implementation of import and exchange controls that lays the import substitution development. This policy allowed for the expansion of viable manufacturing sectors that reduce economic dependencies of import. New tax measures were also passed, which include higher corporate tax rate that increased government reduced tax revenue in 1953 increased to fold compared to 1948. The year of Quirino first assumed presidency, while succeeding presidencies of Magsaysay, Garcia, and Macapagal promised to study their tax structure and policy. The country, through the creation of a tax commission in 1959 by means of Republic Act of Number of 2211, to make way for a more robust and efficient collections scheme. Post-war fiscal policies remained regressive, characterized by the overbidding of the lowest classes, while the landed elite who held business interests were in Congress to ensure the tax would not be relied to them who belong to the higher classes of society. The period of the post-war republic also shows a rise in corruption from 1959 to 1968. Congress did not pass any tax legislation despite important changes in the economy, and the vested interest of Filipino businessmen in Congress would manifest in many instances, such as a rejection of tax on import. Under the Marcos authoritarian regime, the tax system remained aggressive during the later part of the Marcos year 1989 to 1985. The tax system was still heavily dependent on indirect tax, which made up 70% of total tax collection. Tax effort defined as the ratio between the share of the actual tax collection in gross domestic products and productivity. Taxable capacity was at a low 10.7%. As Corazon Aquino took the helm of the government after the EDSA revolution, she reformed the tax system through the 1986 tax reform program. A major reform in the tax system introduced under the term of Aquino was the introduction of the value added to VAT with the following features. 1. Uniform rate of 10% on sale of domestic and imported goods and services, and 0% on the export and foreign currency dominated sales. Number 2, 10% to levy of varied rate applicable to fixed tax of 16 nominal rates, advance sales tax that on original sales, subsequent sales tax, compensating tax, mailer tax, contractor tax, broker tax, film lessors and distributors tax, excess tax on solvent matches, and excess tax on processed videotapes. 3. 2% tax on entities with annual source of receipt of less than 5 million to 200,000. 4. Adoption of tax credit method of calculation, tax by subtracting tax on input from tax on gross sales. 5. Exemption of the sales of basic commodities such as agriculture and marine food products in their original states price, regulated petroleum products and fertilizer, and additional 20% tax on non-essential articles such jewelry, perfume, toilet water, yachts, and other vessels for pleasure and sports.